First, though, we welcome a new legislator to the show to talk about school safety. Assemblywoman Kim Eulner joins us. She is a Republican representing the 11th Legislative District, which covers parts of Monmouth County. Recently, she moved to force a vote on her bill to standardize school emergency response training for police 2 days following the apparent missteps of law enforcement during the school shooting in Texas. Let's watch what happened on the Assembly floor in Trenton.
I would like to talk about too often we grieve the unnecessary tragedy and the parents, families, and communities of those affected.
It's not a bill on the list. It's not a bill on the
Sir, I
board.
respectfully ask that I can speak regarding this bill, 8303.
No. It's not a bill. You want to make a motion on a bill?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. What would be your motion?
Thank you, sir. Well, I would like Bill A303 to be an emergency bill.
So you'd like to have Assembly Bill A303 to be declared an emergency?
Correct.
Okay.
The bill.
Assemblyman McKeon, why do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, in the capacity of parliamentarian, I believe that Rule 15-11A allows for a bill to go from second reading to third and final reading by emergency. The bill is currently referenced to committee and not on second reading. As such, Mr. Speaker, it's my view that this motion is out of order.
Assemblywoman Eulner, is the bill on second reading?
No, it is not, but I'm asking for you.
In that case,
please
Assemblywoman,
pass
I'm
this
going to rule
emergency.
on. Then I'm going
I would like
to
you to put
declare
this
your motion
through.
to be out of order.
I would like to read.
I've already
this.
declared your
Regarding
motion to be
what
out of order.
Assemblywoman
Ullman,
just
please
spoke
take your
about.
seat. Cut off her microphone.
Assemblywoman, it's so good to see you here.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, you initially had a motion to procedurally move this forward from a second reading, but you say you were silenced by Assemblyman John McKeon and Speaker Craig Coughlin, who they have the authority to put the bill directly on a second reading for the purpose for an emergency floor vote. So what happened?
Well, I was given permission to speak. I stood up, I announced myself, and proceeded to talk about Bill 303, Assembly Bill 303. I was shut down pretty much immediately. Then they gave me a second time to be able to speak again. I didn't get very far into my talking points. Assemblyman McKeon suggested I stop, and Leader Coughlin suggested I stop speaking, and I kept going on. I was just trying to be a little forceful. My family who watched the recording saw that I was sort of banging my hand on the desk, so they knew how passionate I was about this subject. And then my microphone was shut off. I know emergencies are requested, throughout the assembly, and I was shut down without being able to speak.
Right. Now, when you're going through legislative process, there's certain procedures and amounts of time that you can talk. But what was the message? What message were you trying to communicate? Did they have a problem with your message, or was it the procedure?
I think it was a little bit of both. As a freshman legislator, I will admit, and I have, that the steps I took, I might have stumbled over a little bit. Again, freshman, but I'm mastering those. But it was also my talking points. I felt like no one was listening to me. I spoke as a mother and as a legislator, and one of how I ran was that I'm a mother, I'm common sense, and it doesn't matter what party we're in. This is about children's safety. And I was just disheartened when they shut me down. It seemed like no one was listening at all.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about your legislation, because when tragedies happen, I've said it before, you get often some of the extremes talking about what people disagree on, as opposed to what can we agree upon and how do we keep our children safe? How do we prevent things like this from happening? So can you tell us a little bit about your bill?
Yes, this bill was written actually right after Sandy Hook, over 10 years ago. So the fact of the matter is that it's been collecting dust for 10 years, and we've had so many more school shootings since that time. It just, again, is disheartened me. Being, again, a freshman, I was asked to revitalize this bill. And then I was asked, to speak on it, and no one listened. And I say to many people, again, since I was sworn in January of this year, we're losing sight of the ultimate goal, protecting our children. It shouldn't be partisanship. I feel that as a Republican, we're not listened to. It's very disconcerting to look across the floor and everyone's on their phones, not paying attention, and then just immediately vote against any of the bills that could make it to the list from the Republican Party.
Yeah. Well, so you are new to the legislature. So let me just really, quickly ask, people want to see new faces. They want to find people who are not career lawmakers. They want people, to give that perspective. How have you feel like you've been welcomed overall?
I've been welcomed with open arms by all of the Republicans, from our leadership, even from our county leadership, all of our constituents. And there are many Democrats, the people that I've met, obviously, on different committees that I'm on. They've been very welcoming, willing to have conversations. I work very closely with my fellow LD11 Assemblywoman, Marilyn Paperno, also a Republican. And we have a great working relationship. And we feel like, being on 5 different committees, we've really spread out the word of, who we are and how we want to help and learn.
Yeah.
And there's a definite learning curve, obviously. But everyone's been very wonderful and welcoming.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There are certain policy procedure that do take a while to get your legislative legs, so to speak. But some of the legislation you're behind, again, when you look at a shooting, whether it's in Texas or some of the other areas, grocery stores and such, mental health often is an issue that people tend to agree upon, that it is a factor. And we need resources to address that, to prevent. And so can you talk a little bit about some of the legislation you're behind that supports just that?
Yes. Well, just to point out that May is considered Mental Health Awareness Month, which in the legislature we recognized. So the fact that now it's June, I don't want that just to be that one month that we pay attention to it. Some legislation that we have pending are to help training teachers to look for certain signs of suicide. In our district office, we've met with many people since we've been sworn in. One was the Teen Suicide Awareness Group. So statistics have shown that emergency room visits are up over 50% for teens. So what we want to do is, again, bring awareness to the teachers, anybody that is in a child's life, to look for certain things to look for to prevent this. If you see someone maybe becoming isolated, maybe hanging out with different people, maybe starting substance abuse, those are all signs. So if we sort of get the stigma out of mental health and let people be able to raise their hands and be like, you know what, I'm really scared, I'm really alone, I'm feeling depressed. I think that's important. So there are some bills that we are hoping that will pass related to all of those issues.
Right. I mean, your school, used to be where you learned reading, writing, arithmetic. Now students regularly are running drills on what to do if there's an active school shooter. So how are you hoping that some of this legislation ultimately improves safety for New Jersey school students and for all of us?
The one bill, A303, was to put into standardized training for all police and first responders throughout New Jersey. As we saw in Texas, and I know some of the initial information has been since disputed, but we need to have a standard response by everybody. The fact that we don't need parents standing aside and trying to break in the school themselves. We also want to have all of the teachers and the students trained properly as to the proper way to respond to, God forbid, there is an issue like this in any of our public or even private schools in New Jersey. That's very important. Knowledge is power. And that way we can all work together. And I feel bad because we are putting more pressure on the teachers, but obviously they are there as protectors of our children for the 6 to 7, 8 hours that they are in school every day. So it's important.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point. Have you been able to speak with educators? Because there is, so much between standardized testing to what to do in case of a weather emergency, to violence in the schools. Are teachers getting overwhelmed? Do we need to see, like I live in an area in the South Hunterdon School District where they had Class 3 officers, and then ultimately they decided, no, we don't want the Class 3 officers in the school. I don't know if the opinion on that is going to change now, considering some of the recent events in the news. But is too much being put on the teachers?
I think in a way, yes, but they again are the people that are there with our children, generally from 8 to 3, ballpark times. So I think it's important for them. Also, I believe teachers get into that career because they care for children. They want to foster their growth, education, and help raise really good citizens of the world. Parents obviously have a bigger responsibility, but when I'm at work and my children, who are now grown, but if they were younger at school, I would depend on those teachers to be protectors in all capacities. Whether they're getting bullied on the playground versus, God forbid, again, this horrible incident that might happen.
Right. Well, and then do you think we need more law enforcement with a presence at our schools?
I think it adds comfort to the students, teachers, and parents who are dropping off to have a police presence there, whether it's that, the level 3 police officer, or yes, I think that would be important, the SROs, to again lend that extra support, maybe put a police car out front to possibly prevent anybody from wanting to approach a school.
Right. Well, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us a little bit about what your experience in the state legislature and also some of the initiatives that you support. And we thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Laura, thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I look
too.
forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Hope to have you back on again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.